Hey there, Squirrel Army. How's it going? As you can see, we're doing a deck tech on Omnath Locus of All today. You can join the Squirrel Army by subscribing. Alright, we're doing another deck tech. You guys voted for this one on our community tab. So 5-color Omnath. I kind of was dreading this one. Actually, I slightly misread it when I first read it through it a couple of times, and even in the video that I put out a while back about it. And I think Thalia was the other one. I did the deck tech on Thalia. I didn't do the deck tech on this one because I was kind of hoping that no one wanted to see it, though you guys did vote for it, so I will do it here. It is going to be an interesting one. I'm not going to go through it and discuss what it does because I really did discuss it a lot in the other video, though I did mess up a little bit in what it does and understanding what it does. But still, it does basically the same thing that I thought it did when I read through it. So this is going to be a fairly interesting build. And I don't quite know what I'm going to do with it, but we're going to see. And we're going to try to put a deck together with this and see how we go. It's going to be kind of fun to put this one together. So yeah, I better get on with it and get to building this one for you guys so you can check it on out. Alright guys, so I finished putting together the list here. Nearly $1,000, so not the most budget list in the world, but still, I did scrimp a little bit here and there in certain places, but still, a lot of the better fetch lands and things like that are worth quite a bit, especially since they haven't been reprinted in a while, or the half of the cycle that wasn't in MH2 that hasn't been reprinted in a while is now at the same prices as the ones that were just reprinted were before MH2, but it is what it is, so can't do much about it, unfortunately. But anyway, I will get going through this list, but before I do, as always, I will say if you're not interested in watching me discuss this deck and saying what's kind of in it and how it all kind of works and that kind of thing, because I know some people aren't that super duper interested in that whole thing and whatnot. They just want to see kind of the general idea of what the deck's about, kind of maybe see a little bit of the list, and check it out for themselves, figure it out for themselves. You can go down there into the comments below, check out the deck list, it should be there in the comments, so you can check that out and see what this whole list is all about, rather than having to listen to me waffle on and tell everyone else what it's all about. Having said that, for those people who do want to see what's in this list and want to get a bit more of an in-depth guide as to the deck, I will do that as best as I can. As again, I'm not going to talk about the lands because it's a bunch of fetches, a bunch of the multicolor basic lands that you can kit in most decks, and just some basic lands. So there's nothing super duper amazing to talk about other than maybe the world tree, and that's probably about it. So I'm just not worth the time to really talk about because, you know, there's not much there. What you would expect for the most part. Yes, I don't have any dual lands in this deck, but I always find that just having basics is mostly fine, and I did want to make it slightly as budget as possible, so you could of course put in a lot of the duals. I would suggest not just putting in all 10. I know a lot of people just do that. I would suggest looking at your color balance and going, okay, well, what are my main colors? And for this deck, it is white and green, or green and white, actually, because green's the most. But still, then you're splashing everything else, pretty much. But again, if you want a better breakdown of what your deck list is like, check out this sort of thing and see what it's all about. because again, this really helps you seeing, you know, is blue more than black, is red more than blue, etc., how much more, etc. That can really help you out finding what you need to find. I don't want to talk about the kind of ramp spells here in the sorceries because they're just ramp spells. They're not the best, but they're pretty darn good. And we are fairly heavy green, and green is the best fixing color. So again, and it's one of the best ramp colors. So again, just having those ramp spells there just to get out our other duels and whatnot, even if we don't have many duels actually in this deck. If you upgrade it to actually have duels, it's much better, I would say. But still, getting forest is something that we do want to do. We do care about landfall in some regards, so it can be useful. The ultimatum, I do wish we had a few more board wipes, but this is one of the best ones I feel like we can have, especially for what our commander wants to do. So it just destroys everything of our opponents. So that's what we want. We don't want to hit our stuff mostly, and we just want to devastate our opponents so that they have a tough time. But yeah, still all right. To find some other ones, but I couldn't really find many, and I was kind of coming to the end and needed to just finish. Ren, mostly here for its static ability to make our lands tap for mana of any color. I'm not a huge fan of that kind of thing for the most part, but in these decks that have very wonky mana costs sometimes, not a lot, but sometimes, it is very helpful. And that's what I say. People don't think I don't like Chromatic Lantern and things like this. Well, I don't love them, but I don't hate them. You need to put them in the right deck, not just jam it in a deck because it's a two-color deck and I can't be bothered figuring out that I'm actually almost mono green or whatever. But yeah, like things like that or whatnot. I'm in 3 colors, but I'm pretty much mono green. Or what's that? I'm in 4 colors, but I'm pretty much mono green. Still in this deck, we're 5 colors and pretty much mono green. But again, having that versatility to help us out when we need it is well worth it. And again, we can turn our fetches into lands that produce mana of any color, so that can help us out as well when we don't want to just crack them for no real reason or there's nothing to fetch for, etc. So well worth that at least. I don't know the other abilities are that super amazing, but the ultimate's not too bad. I do wish the tick up would untap a land. It doesn't actually untap lands, so that's where I find that this card kind of sinks down a little bit for me. If it untapped lands, then I'd be much happier with it because you could just tap your land for mana and then untap it. So essentially, it works like a mana dork in a sense. And it doesn't protect itself very well, though. It's not the most insane card, though the flashback sort of effect or the recasting sort of effect is pretty nice. But yeah. Artifact wise, I don't want to talk about the mana rocks that are in here because they're all just here for fixing more or less. So there's not much to really talk about. Even the Orrery, it does do some other stuff with drawing cards equal to the number of colors among our permanents, but again, it's mostly here for fixing. It does make a whole bunch of mana. I don't love it, but it is pretty good because it actually makes all colors in a sense as well, and it can help us draw cards, so it's not the worst. Doubling Cube's probably one of the only other ones that it isn't a mana rock, but it acts like a mana rock, as long as we've got enough mana of colors and whatnot. Just some fast boots to protect our commander and anything else we need. And then Glass of the Guild Pact. So we've got a lot of multicolored stuff, so we're going to draw a few cards off this, and it can add a mana of any color. So I think those things are worth our time to at least consider. Enchantments, we've got a few random ones that don't do a lot, like Broker's Ascendancy, but it's pretty nice just to put counters on our stuff. And loyalty on our planeswalkers. We don't have many planeswalkers, but still, whatever. And that it's okay. Like, again, it's 3 colors, so our commander cares about 3 color or plus things, so it's okay. This ascendancy is actually pretty good, the Carabretti. Upkeep, we look at the top card of our library. If it's a creature or planeswalker, we may reveal it, put it into our hand. If we don't put it into our hand, we may put it on the bottom. So it can help us set up our top to a degree or help us draw extra cards. So that's well worth it. Plus, it's 3 colors, so our commander cares about that. So I still think that's seemingly alright. Nexus, we want to get extra value out of some of our spells. It's funny when you cast something that's like a 9-drop or whatever for like 3 mana or something, but yet you still cascade for 9. That can be really gross. So there are things that you can do like that. So it's well worth thinking about. Ristic Study, we need more. I think we needed more card advantage, and I just couldn't kind of replace it, so I just left it in there. Even though I didn't think it was the most optimum, I just felt like it was still really good, so I just couldn't find myself cutting it. Smothering Tithe, again, we need things to help us fix for mana, and it does do that, so that is probably well worth it. Plus, the taxing effect is something that we do kind of want to do, I feel, and that's another reason to kind of play this card. It really helps us out because we're a fairly slow deck overall, and we need a lot of time to kind of set up what we're kind of doing. And yeah, that will help us slow our opponents down, that or just get us so far ahead, it'll be good. The Sultai Ascendancy, I don't ever think you really want to put stuff into the graveyard with it, but being able to, again, set up the top cards of your library is pretty good, especially when you've got your commander out and whatnot. Plus, our commander does care about this being 3 colors, so again, can be well worth our time. The library, same sort of thing. It isn't 3 colors or whatever, so our commander doesn't care about it. But again, being able to set up the top cards of our library is well worth our time because, again, our commander will be able to trigger something off the top for us, so can be very helpful. The Temur Ascendancy, giving our creatures haste is quite good. Plus, whenever a 4 or greater creature enters, we can draw a card. There's a lot of 4 or greater creatures in the deck, I believe, so I think that's well worth it. There are some earlier game creatures as well, but still I think that's well worth our time to think about because, again, it'll help our mana dorks, again, to tap for mana and whatnot as well. Even so, when it's not triggering the draw cards. Not really going to talk about the instants here because there's a bunch of just good removal for the most part. Not all of it's 3 colors, but that's okay. We don't always need 3 colors, so that's okay. Creatures, Anima. Well, the idea here is we need to get... Well, our commander will provide us a lot of coloured mana. And what we need to pay for the most part, of a lot of our creatures is the colourless mana. And when we can more and more easily pay for that colourless mana, the more and more free our cards become, and we can just start slamming cards much more easily. So again, it's well worth our time to try to grow this guy if we can ever draw him at the right time. Sometimes it is a bit awkward and you draw him on turn 12 and you can't really do anything with him, but when you draw him on turn 3 or 4 or something, it's well worth slamming as quickly as what you can so that you can start getting counters on it and start doing stuff with it. There might be other ways that we can put counters on it, and like the Brocus Ascendancy and whatnot. So again, that's another real good reason to have some of those other synergies going on in your deck. Not to say that you build your deck around, this one synergy with this one card, but again, it is a pretty broad effect that does do something decent and does work well with certain cards. Atraxa, it kind of does a lot of what our commander kind of wants to do, getting that card advantage and getting that multicolored aspect going along within the deck will mean that the types of permanents that you tend to pick will be mostly multicolored. Though, again, you want to try to set up your top and whatnot for the multicolored, so I don't know. So maybe you want to pick the non-multicolored cards so that you've got less chance of actually hitting duds. So that it's a bit weird which way you kind of want to go with it, but it still does a lot of stuff that helps us get mass card advantage and whatnot. So that's pretty good. Birds is here for mana. Bloom Tenders for mana. So those are pretty darn useful. Tulane, again, we're playing a lot of creatures. So just being able to draw cards and play extra lands is pretty darn useful for us. Dryads here to make our mana tap for any color, plus extra landfalls isn't too bad. So that's alright. Elish Norn, this is a great card, I think, and it was tough for me not to try to put it in somewhere. It's not really on theme very much, but it's a very, very good card. It helps us protect ourselves, helps us protect our stuff. Our opponents have to pay 2 life unless they pay 1 mana for every damage they deal. So that's really good. It's a really upgraded Ghostly Provision style. In fact, I haven't really talked about many of these Praetors yet, unfortunately, on the channel, but I kind of want to now to a degree, but still, it's an amazingly powerful card. I'm not too eager on the back side of it. I think the front side's good enough as it is. That you don't really need that backside, though the backside can do stuff for you. I just don't really see myself flipping it much unless somebody's going to kill it or whatever. So that way I would protect it in a way, because now it's going to flip. So maybe there is that, but not too sure. Ezeka, I mostly think we want this on the backside, but on the front side, it's not too terrible, honestly. Having a mana dork that adds mana of any color, and our legendaries can tap to add mana of any color. That's not too bad. So that can be well worth our time, but certainly still the other side is well worth our time as well. Being of upkeep, we reveal cards from the top of the library to reveal a creature or planeswalker and put it into the battlefield, rest on the bottom. So again, we're playing a lot of creatures, not a lot of planeswalkers, but still, it'll give us that card advantage that we kind of want. It isn't technically multiple colors because it's when it's in our library or whatnot. It is just green technically, though it has a color identity of all colors. So it's a bit weird like that, but still, yeah, can be a bit odd. Faber Elder's just here for mana and whatnot. Kahiji is pretty good because we need to find ways to kill our opponents. And this is slightly a political tool. Our opponents can take advantage of it, but it really helps us out overall because, again, it doesn't hurt us. It only hurts our opponents. So, yeah, giving +2 to our opponents, only if they're attacking our opponents, isn't too bad. The Ferris Rotrick, yeah, again, 2 colors, not 3, but still really good because, again, we're playing a lot of multicolored spells, so we're going to get a fair few golems off him. The golems don't do a whole lot, but they're good defenders and they're good attackers sometimes, so, and they're just good fodder in general. They're just good to help us do what we're trying to do. Hyraxia for mana. Ilhag, it's pretty good even though it's not multiple colors. It can help basically sneak attack things into play when we're attacking with it. So that's well worth our time because, again, we need to find ways around some of the wonky mana costs of some of our cards, and just getting these free attackers coming in and whatnot is really useful. Even if we have to return it to our hand, that's still alright. We get some damage out of it. Maybe we get some other effects out of it, like its ETB trigger or whatnot. And, yeah, well, it can be well worth it. I don't know whether the Stormcleave is that amazing, but it's alright. It is 3 colours, so a commander likes that. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you can put a counter on it or remove a counter from it. I think it gains lifelink and indestructible is actually the best mode amongst those modes that it actually has. I don't think, like, 4 damage is mostly irrelevant damage for the most part, but when it's repeatable like this, it isn't too bad, I don't think. So it could do some stuff, especially if you can stack multiple combats or stack multiple counters on it. Things like that. You can just start shooting things for lots of damage. So it's not terrible. Ishin, we do have a few attack triggers in the deck. Not a million, but we do have a few. So I do think it's pretty darn useful in the deck. And again, 3 colors, Commander likes that. Jetmir, we might not get, again, as many things out of it as what, like, just building around Jetmir as a commander might get, or building around it as it is built in the deck as far as that goes. But again, it gives us all benefits that we all want. So again, getting +1/+0 and Vigilance is real good. +1/+0 and Trample is really good. And +1/+0 and Double Strike is really good. So all of the things that it gives us are really good. So it's well worth putting it in the pile and seeing how it can give us stuff. Joda, again, we're playing lots of legendaries, so I think that's alright. Getting that legendary cascade and buffing all of our legendaries seems alright. The Knight buffs all of our multicolored stuff for each of its colors, so 5 color things get +5, 3 color things get +3, etc., etc. So that's pretty useful to buff our stuff up. The Archangel, it basically gives us an omniscience when it hits somebody. That's not too bad. It is repeatable effect to an extent, to a degree, until it dies and whatnot. But it's a big 5/5 flyer, so it's pretty hard to sort of block and whatnot. And I do think we're at a lower power level for the most part. Muldrotha, it's here for the recursion, but again, it is 3 colors, so that does work well with what we're kind of doing. So that's kind of nice. Nethroi, it isn't that amazing, but again, it is pretty good. I find that being able to return all of our stuff can be very useful, but I'd rather have it on a permanent like this, especially when you're playing something like Muldrotha as well. Plus, again, there's 3 colors, so can help out. Mutate sometimes doesn't work out, but still. Oh well. Niv Mizzet, again, it's much like the Atraxa and whatnot. But again, this is for 2 colors. We don't have a lot of 2 colors, but we do have some. So I do think it can do some stuff, and it just helps us out with mass card advantage. Plus, it's 5 colors, so a commander likes that a lot. Noble's here for mana. Nyx Bloom's actually one that I'm not too 1000% hot on, but again, I don't think our commander actually counts for generating mana when it turns mana into black mana or whatever, or even if it counts for generating mana in terms of when you reveal the card. Not too sure. No, it's if you tap it for mana. Okay. So yeah, I don't know, but it's not horrible, and triple mana isn't bad. So I'm not too sure, but again, it's not terrible. Though you can certainly take it out for something else. I think we're almost playing Omnath Tribal here as well, so that is kind of cool. We've got 4 color Omnath. I do believe we've got the 2 of the other ones as well. I don't have one of them. The draw card one and make landfall 4 colors one, I think that one is kind of the best, honestly. So, but yeah, they're all right. Omnath Locus of Mana is pretty good. Your mana doesn't empty, and oh no, it doesn't make it green, does it? Okay, that's alright. But green mana doesn't empty, and mostly green, so again, that's most of the mana that we'll make. So again, that will keep that. So that's all right as well. The one that puts counters on your elementals and draws cards. I think this is almost the worst one that I included, but I think that it's still alright because again it's 3 colours, so our commander likes that. So it's okay. Ramos, we're playing a lot of multicoloured stuff again, so it can be quite well worth our time to consider playing something like this. It can only do its ability once per turn to make that mana and whatnot, but still being able to cast something essentially for free and continue to put counters on it and get it again next turn and whatnot can be well worth our time. Redeem, again, got a lot of multicolored stuff, so giving him a +1 buff or +1/+O buff is pretty good. And when a multicolored thing dies, we can return it to our hand at the beginning of the end step. So it can protect us from board wipes and things like that as well, so that's pretty useful. Solar Windgrace, we do want it for the land returning effects mostly, because again we've got a lot of fetch lands in our library and whatnot, so we want to be able to fetch again lands and help make our mana fixed and whatnot. The other effects aren't too important for the most part. We can discard lands, which can draw us cards, which isn't too bad. Sometimes we do need to do that and whatnot. But again, it's not the most important. But it is 3 colors, so Commander loves it. Sarkhan, giving our stuff tramples, not too bad. Plus, not being able to counter our stuff seems alright. Just those sorts of things aren't too bad. Thalia, generally pretty good as well. We can play additional lands, which is nice as well. And creatures and lands our opponents enter tapped. And when we attack, we can sacrifice a creature or land to draw a card. Again, not that we have a lot of fodder creatures, but we do have a few fodder land. Not that we can play that many lands from the graveyard, though we don't have no ways to play lands from the graveyard. But again, it is well worth our time to get rid of lands sometimes because, again, especially late game, we're not really needing that much. We honestly just need to hit people and win the game in a way. So, and it can slow our opponents down, so that's well worth our time again. Vorinclex, I'm not as hyped about this one as Elish Norn, though I do think it's alright in this deck, especially for fixing purposes, especially when you actually have the dual lands. This one isn't as good without the dual lands, but again, unfortunately I didn't put them in this specific list, though you should put them in if you have the money and the budget to do so. But yeah, I'm not too sure about the other side of it. I don't see much here that we really amazingly want, though there's not that many terrible modes. But again, it's just not a lot of what we want to do, but still it's alright, I think. Yorick, we've got a few ETBs in this deck, and we wouldn't mind doubling some of those ETBs, so I think it's worth our time, plus 3 colors again. Our commander loves that. Zakama, he's just a big, nasty boy. And again, our commander cares about the 3 colors, but our commander wants as much mana as what it can get. So if we can pay this for 3 mana, again, we can untap all of our lands. So we can also just float mana in response to it entering and whatnot from our cast. So we can basically kind of double our mana for a turn and whatnot. So it can be quite powerful. Can do a few things on its own, destroying artifacts and whatnot. So, and it's a real big beater, so pretty powerful. Zaxara is mostly here for mana. 2 mana is for 4 isn't too bad. We don't have any X spells, but that's fine. It's 2 mana of any color versus something that would only make 2 colors mostly. And that is the list here for this one for today. So yeah, you guys, again, can let me know what you guys think. Write your thoughts down there in the comments below. And I hope you've enjoyed this one, and hope you will join me again in the next one.